So good afternoon and good evening, everyone, depending on your geographical location. Um, I I welcome you to today's webinar, which is part of the series of webinars that have been planned under the auspices of the Pan-African Network for Economic Analysis of Policies, shortly or acronymed as PANAP. The topic for today's webinar is strengthening Africa's agricultural value chains for food and economic transformation. My name is Kweku Entry. I work for FARA as a cluster leader for research, policy and investment, and also the PANAP focal person at the PANAP Secretariat, which is hosted by both FARA and the JRC. It is my pleasure to serve as your moderator for this important conversation, which has brought us together, and not only us, but many stakeholders from around the world. As we all know, agriculture remains central to the economies of most countries in Africa. Its contribution to employment, food security and nutrition, as well as GDP, cannot be underestimated. Notwithstanding, many agricultural value chains continue to face persistent challenges, such as limited infrastructure, market access barriers, climate vulnerability, and financing gaps. At the same time, there are immense opportunities. Through stronger EU-AU collaboration, innovation, and inclusive policies, agricultural value chains can become powerful drivers for food security, job creation, and economic transformation. Today's discussion will explore practical ideas, experiences, and partnerships that can help unlock this potential that we have on the continent. Before I proceed, let me indicate or let me draw your attention to some key things you need to take notes as participants. So this session will run for approximately between 90 to 120 minutes. That's between 1.5 hours to 2 hours. We have 3 presentations that will be followed by Q&A session. There is interpretation facility for English to French. So on your Zoom interface, you'll find a globe there. When you click it, you can select the language of your choice so that you can adequately follow the presentations as expected. I would also want to indicate that there's going to be an evaluation towards the end of the webinar. And so I crave your indulgence to stay till the end so that you can participate in the evaluation. That will help us, learn lessons and also to do better in our next series of webinars that we would have. So on that, I would say that you also feel free to share your questions in the chat as the presentation is going on, and I believe that the presenters will have the chance to respond to your questions. Without further ado, let me now introduce our presenters for today. And at this moment, I would like to share my screen, which has their profiles, so that I can adequately introduce them without making any mistakes. So let me know if you can see my screen. Is my screen visible? At the moment, I'm showing the program.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So now I have a singular honor to introduce our presenters. The first presenter for us is Dr. Rosemirta Birungi. She works for the Africa Forum for Agricultural Advisory Services as the Africa-wide technical lead on agricultural extension and advisory services. She's going to make a presentation titled Value Chain Approach as a Driver of Sustainable Food Systems. Dr. Rosemirta initiated the building of climate-resilient agricultural value chains characterized by remarkable agro-biodiversity enhancement, whilst recently working with the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Dr. Rosemirta holds a PhD in agricultural and rural innovations with research on value chains, and interests include marketing, gender, commercialization, and upgrading of value chains across many commodities across the continent. Dr. Rosemirta, would you want to say hello before you come in with your presentations? You can put your camera on and just say hello to our distinguished participants.
Okay, thanks a lot for the opportunity, Dr. Kwaku. Colleagues online and those with me here, I thank you for honoring this occasion, and we look forward to further discussions to enhance value chains development in Africa. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemirta. Next on our list, we have Mr. Ngwira. He works with the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, acronamed COMESA, and he is a regional economic integration and market access specialist. He's going to present to us strengthening Africa's regional agricultural market systems and resilience for value chain competitiveness. Mr. Ngwira has over 20 years experience in trade, industrial development, agricultural transformation, and private sector competitiveness across Africa's COMESA and SADC regions. He recently served as team leader and market access expert for the EU-funded Regional Enterprise Competitiveness and Access to Market programs at COMESA. He holds a master's degree in governance and public policy from the University of Queensland in Australia. Mr. Ngwira, would you want to say hello to your participants before we give the floor to you finally?
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And yeah, I look forward to having a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation. Last but not the least on our agenda, we have Mr. Baraka Jeremiah, who works for the Kilimo Fresh Foods Africa Limited in Tanzania, and I'm told he's a CEO, and so he's going to share a lot of experiences with us. He is going to make a presentation entitled Streamlining Africa's Fresh Foods Produce Value Chains, Insights from Tanzania's Lead Buyer Business Engagements. Mr. Baraka Jeremiah is a young entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of Kilimo Fresh Foods Africa Limited, an agricultural supply chain and technology company. He founded Kilimo Fresh to solve a critical issue in Tanzania, which is massive crop wastage caused by poor post-harvest logistics. His work in agri-tech and sustainable business in Africa agricultural value chains has earned him continental recognitions, such as being among the top 10 hero in the prestigious Africa Businesses Heroes competition. Mr. Baraka, would you also want to say hello to our participants?
Thank you so much, Kwaku, for a very good introduction, and I'm very happy to be here. Looking forward to a lot of learnings and learn from other members too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation, Mr. Baraka. We're grateful to have you here. So without wasting much time, I would like to now call on our first presenter to make her presentation to us. But let me repeat that we still have these as rules, that there's interpretation facility that allows us to switch in between the languages, English and French. And we're also going to have 3 presentations that will be followed by Q&A. So as they present, kindly note your questions, your areas of clarification that you want to seek, so that once the presentations are done, we will give the chance, we have adequate time for us to discuss and to ask our questions. Last but not the least, we're going to have an evaluation at the end of the session, or towards the end of the session. So I want to again encourage you to stay till the end of it so that you can take part in the evaluation process to make us better in our subsequent webinars. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to our first presenter, Dr. Rosemirta, to take the floor and proceed with her presentation. Dr. Rosemirta, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I hope I am audible enough.
Yes, you are audible. We can see you and we can hear you. So you may
Okay,
proceed.
thanks a lot. And colleagues online, I'm honored to have you in this presentation because without you, we don't consider this as a successful event because we would be speaking to ourselves. Thanks a lot, colleagues. Mine is a backdrop presentation to bring us into context of value chains, and then we shall be having a pivotal presentation which will follow on the cases of how EU, AU food systems are being supported in Africa in the context of value chains. Then we shall have the last presentation which will give us a use case of how value chains are being implemented on a small scale so that we can be able to understand what this kind of entrepreneurial aspect links to value chains. Okay, the setup, mine, as I already told you, is a very brief presentation. It will give us a generic understanding of the concept of value chains. And then it will also help us to understand how setting of the stage is done to integrate value chain, which is more of a terminology that has migrated through different phases, and now it is being integrated as a driver for sustainable food systems. And then it also gives us highlights on the typologies of agricultural value chain commodities. The aspect of typologies is becoming very important because of the way people are mixing the terminology of value chains. So if somebody tells you a commodity is a value chain, a function is a value chain, so it is important we understand and have a clear delineation on what a typology for value chain is. And then I'll also give some takeaways on methodological preconditions of how to utilize the terminology of value chains into development programs. So briefly, I would like to inform you that value chain approach has shifted from a concept that has been traditionally used into now a sustainable food system development agenda, or what people call the levers. Value chain as a concept started with Michael Porter. I believe some of you are familiar with this aspect, which started in 1985 as a solution, like the way we are looking for solutions right now, as a solution to industrial development processes. And so the author, Michael Porter, came up with this framework, which had two dimensions, the primary activities and the support activities, to move a consolidated effort on value chains. So why is it very important to understand value chains? Because value chains is a methodology that helps us to think of a way how the world is engaged in producing, in buying, in selling, in consuming, as well as in disposing of agricultural products. So with that, I take you through a trajectory, conceptual trajectory of value chains. So as I did mention, value chains started with Michael Porter in 1985. And I believe those who can look at the literature, that is the time Michael Porter was a student, and they were looking for solutions like how we run hackathons or challenges, and then he suggested the concept of value chains as a mechanism for industrial transformation, especially economies that are moving from agriculture-based industry like the way we are in Africa into industrial transformation through value addition. Then in the early 2000s, this concept was integrated into research by key authors, that was Kaplinski and Morris, and they started figuring out how this could move from simply an industrial transformation agenda to become a research-based agenda. And in the early 2000s, again, it was adopted into R&D, and the thematic areas were mainly to do with gender development programs. We see USAID, we see the World Bank, we see CGI institutions. Also now we also see UN entities develop concepts around value chains. And so then value chains as a concept begins to get traction beyond research, beyond industrial transformation into the broader R&D agenda. To date, there was a paradigm shift again, a trigger, which accelerated utilization of value chains. And this is why we have this webinar, so that people can understand that there is a shift which now positions value chains differently. With the current global shocks, you've seen the COVID, you have seen trade tariffs, value chains have begun to get a new traction. For instance, during COVID, there was a supply chain crash, and therefore people had to rethink backwards. How do they get commodities from production all through to consumption and disposal after use, which is the generic understanding of a value chain, without, when they are constrained with these global shocks, like what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. It is helping us to rethink value chains, especially issues to do with supply logistics. Also, currently, as I speak, I've been working with support from FARA, with Dr. Kwaku here. We've been working on the AU-EU Global Gateway Value Chain Investment Profile for Sub-Saharan Africa. And when you look at that document, it shows you that there is a shift, and therefore we need to continue the conversations around value chains. Another very important landmark is the technological shift. We are seeing digital dominancy, we are seeing digital big bets, AI-enabled infrastructure solutions like the one we are trying to develop here for the Africa continent on agriculture extension and advisory services, so that digital solutions can be available for farmer access to information and markets. And so with this kind of landscape, that's why we have this webinar, so that we can be able to discuss and generate plausible solutions towards addressing critical constraints in agriculture within the Africa landscape. Remove it, okay. So with that, it helps us now to have a lens of the kind of commodities that we are talking about on the Africa landscape. So then we are in this conversation, and also in my previous work with the UN, the focus was on setting the stage. In the UN, we're looking at setting the stage for value chain development in response to climate change. Here at the Africa continent, we are looking at setting the stage for strengthening agricultural value chains in response to food systems in Africa. So the same approach is being adopted, is a stepwise approach. First is to look at agricultural commodities that are a priority within the context that we are working, like you'll hear in the pivotal presentation, how COMESA, through funding with the EU, has been doing it. We are looking at participatory value chain assessment as a second step, which helps you to understand what are those critical areas for investment. And step 3 looks at developing critical investment profiles, and those are the ones that we put in money, like the one you'll see the case of Tanzania, how COMESA or EU and other private sector partners are putting in money. The second, so in that kind of the first step, you do a lot of value chain mapping, and that kind of mapping gives you the details of the critical constraints. It gives you the details of the risk aspects that need to be addressed. So it's a very rigorous and careful experience under step 2, where we do value chain mapping to understand those critical investments. Then step 4, we find out the investment areas, and then we start focusing on the models like the one you hear in Tanzania that can be able to be invested in, maybe an aggregation facility model, like you will see the case of Kilimo Fresh, a cottage processing plant, as you will hear in the case of COMESA support, and also green investments like the ones you have been seeing, like solar-powered transport mechanism, things like that. Then step 5, we look at the sustainability investment support. And this is where we shall have an interaction through a mentee discussion in the Q&A. What are those sustainable investments that you would recommend after hearing this kind of story? And finally, like any other development program, you monitor, evaluate, learn, and continue the practice. I promised that we would look at something to do with typologies of Africa's agricultural value chain commodities. This is adopted from the Asareka value chain commodity framework for research and development, and it helps us to characterize
the commodities, so that if we have lump sum investment, we are able to understand. So in the Africa continent, we look at high value staple food crops. You have seen those, high value non-staple food crops like coffee, cocoa, avocado is also getting traction, and high value small stocks, as well as the green economies, which is a new value chain investment. And we are looking at de-risking investments for value chains. And so green economies, where you hear people talk about circular economy, energy saving interventions. So these are components that we help to support the value chain. Lastly, I would like to share that with that kind of background, what are the takeaways for value chain as a methodology? Very important. It is important to do training. And so we call upon partners to support training programs, documentation on data collection, because value chain depends a lot on analytics. And so there's need for a lot of data collection, like I've showed you. It's not business as usual. And we are also trying to digitalize this process, because at the moment, most of these maps are drawn through participatory programs which use manual systems. So digitalization and documentation and dashboards are things that we look forward. Implementing partner engagement is very important. Community level pre-testing of the methodology, because we are still ensuring that this can respond to Africa's solutions. Also priority selection. Not every commodity in Africa qualifies to be a value chain priority investment. That's why we are looking at the EU Gateway Program, which has clearly done a lot of background studies to inform what countries need, what commodities are important for the different countries, so that we have a landscape. Also, FAO has the OCOP, which has been rigorously done, one commodity, one country program, whereby each country was allocated a commodity for value chain development. So these initiatives, plus those that I have not mentioned, are very important to understand priority selection of commodities for Africa's value chains development. Participatory mapping. With this approach, you just don't sit and use a consultant to do the mapping. You must listen to the stakeholders. So that's why there's a lot of stakeholder engagement in the mappings, because they have the lived experiences on understanding what is needed as critical investments, or the constraints, or the proposals, or the critical control points in the pathways for value chain development. Then also the results that we get need to be field-based, like you hear from the COMESA presentation. They do community level or localized value chain assessments and investments. Lastly, the ZORA is very important for every commodity to conduct baseline studies, because the value chains operate in a very dynamic context, and therefore all the time we need to update the status quo of the value chains. Then also in the value chain analysis, you need to do end market analysis to inform the priority commodities as well as the critical investment pathways. So with this, this is a brief background from my side. It ushers in the pivotal presentation on strengthening agricultural value chains. And then we learn how it is being done through the RECAMP program of COMESA, which is an AU-EU supported program touching so many dimensions, like I've mentioned, in the value chain development, setting the stage. With that, I thank you very much, and we look forward to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemirta, for setting the stage for us, for giving us a brief history about the value chain and where we started and where we have come to. I think, those of us who didn't know about the history of value chain, I think today we have heard and have known where it started from, how it started, and the pathways that it has taken up till now, where we are still talking about the value chains. The takeaway that you highlighted have been duly noted. You've spoken about training. You've spoken about the need to prioritize, value chains in a jurisdiction. Those are well noted, and I believe that we will take note of these things. You made a lot of references to the COMESA story, and I believe participants are eager to hear what it is and how they've gone around it. And so, without wasting much time, I would invite our next presenter, Mr. Ngwira, to come in and then tell us the COMESA story and then what we can learn from it and the recommendations that will come out from those presentations. So, Mr. Ngwira, if you can hear me, you may share your screen and proceed. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwaku. Just give me one second. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwaku. And just because I've seen you've struggled with pronouncing my name, so I'll just repeat what my name. So my name is. I'll just import you to Zambia so you can come and practice. So my name is Nsangwa Ngwira, and I think I've already been introduced. So my surname is pronounced as Ngwira. Okay, so I think good afternoon, good evening to everyone on the call, and just to get started, I just want to thank Dr. Rosemirta for ushering in this presentation via background. And I also want to say a special thank you to PANAP and AFAS and all the organizers for the opportunity to participate in this important discussion on strengthening Africa agriculture value chains and food systems. I think this is a very critical topic, and I think it will have wonderful discussions. So my presentation, I think, has been introduced, will mostly focus on the practical implementation experiences that we've had from the COMESA region. And I will try as much as possible to reflect on how, this having just recently concluded this particular program in December, I think there are quite a number of lessons that we shall learn from. So I think let me briefly just walk us through the structure of my presentation. I will begin quite briefly with the recamp. So the recamp is the Regional Enterprise Competitiveness and Access to Markets program. So I'll briefly give the background of the program, and I'll also, as a way of providing context, provide an overview of its objectives as well as its regional implementation approach, which I think, just picking on what Dr. Rosemirta presented, you will note that a number of those variables that she touched on, are really key in terms of approach. I'll also discuss the changing nature of agriculture competitiveness. Particularly, I'll focus on the issue of quality, food safety, traceability, sustainability, and efficient logistics. And after that, I'll try and highlight some of the key focus value chains. I think, as you heard, value chains, not all of them, have all the characteristics that are of interest to both, the regional bodies as well as the donor. I think, as you know, there's a lot of research and data that is collected before these programs are done. So I'll just briefly touch on that. And then I'll also further share the experience of the recamp in terms of strengthening food safety and sustainability compliance, and briefly touch on some of our lessons from the support that we did to the SMEs on digital market platforms and other information systems, such as the Africa Trade Observatory that we did in collaboration with International Trade Center, the ITC. I'll try and summarize and end my presentation by just talking about some key strategic lessons that have emerged from the program, and conclude hopefully with some key takeaways that PANAP would probably consider and reflect on in strengthening resilient, competitive, and sustainable agriculture value chains. So anyway, let me probably just start with a bit of a background before we go into the technical issues of the recamp. Let me just briefly provide some background on the program itself. So RECAMP, as I mentioned earlier, it stands for the Regional Enterprise Competitiveness and Access to Markets Program. So this program was implemented within the COMESA region. I think, as some of you might be aware, the COMESA region has 21 member states, or 21 countries. And this program was implemented in all the 21 member states, of course, with the support under the 11th European Development Fund and the financial support from the European Union. So you will see that this was very critical, at least in unlocking some of the issues concerning competitiveness of SMEs within the region, as you know, the donor fund itself. And I think for some of the colleagues that are on the call, you will note that during this time period, the 2020-2025, there were a number of competitiveness programs that were funded at the same time under the European Union. For example, we had the West African Competitiveness Program, the WACOMP, we also in ECOWAS. And in East Africa, we also had the East Africa Community Market Access Upgrade Program, the MARkup 2. And so you note that these programs were all centered on one issue and one question: how can we improve productivity within our value chains? How can we improve the competitiveness of the SMEs within the value chains? So for the recamp, in terms of the budget, it was not a huge program. The budget was 8.8 million euros, and that covered 21 member states. But it's quite interesting, you know, how far this investment from the European Union and the African Union went. And in terms of the objectives of the program, the RECAMP's main objective was to contribute to deeper regional economic integration and enhanced competitiveness within the COMESA region. And on this, more specifically, the program aimed to strengthen the private sector participation in sustainable regional and global value chains. So over the years, it's been noted really that, you know, trade among member states or even within the African Union is low when you compare it to you know, the trade of the individual countries outside. For example, for COMESA, the intra-COMESA trade is less than 11% of total global trade. So you note that this, for many years, is something that was on the radar, you know, of policymakers to say, how can we, you know, jumpstart the region and improve on implementation and trade with integration within the region. Hence, these programs that were funded by the EU at the same time. So for RECAMP, the focus was mainly on 3 value chains. And so these were just a moment, waiting for the screen to change. Okay, I hope you can see my screen on the value chains. So those were the focus value chains for RECAMP. And so RECAMP, under the RECAMP, the 3 strategic value chains that were prioritized were horticulture, agro-processing, leather, and leather products. So I think, as Dr. Rosemirta had indicated, you know, these were not just abruptly picked. In 2014, COMESA had done a baseline study which had about 12 value chains. And so for purposes of recamp, these three were selected, and based on the fact that it was deemed that they offered the strong potential for job creation, export diversification, and deeper participation in terms of regional and global value chains. Because remember, our goal in this one was to ensure that the member states are trading, among themselves and develop value chains that would cut across the member states. So for the first value chain, for example, the horticulture, it was noted that this sector has significant opportunities for expanding inter-African trade and exports to international markets, particularly the EU. And it was also noted that horticulture contributes directly to food security, the nutrition, the rural incomes, and employment creation. However, what was also observed is that competitiveness in this sector increasingly depends on issues of standards to do with standards compliance, traceability issues, the cold chain systems, as well as efficient logistics. And the same goes for agro-processing. The program recognized that Africa cannot sustainably grow competitiveness through raw commodity exports alone. So agro-processing was selected for its importance in terms of its ability to promote value addition and support the industrialization agenda of COMESA and the AU, as well as its ability to get some quick wins in terms of strengthening SMEs and creating stronger regional value chains. So the program supported mostly upgrading of enterprises and market linkages when we look at agro-processing competitiveness, and I will come back to this and just go a bit deeper in terms of some of the practical results and experiences. The last but not least value chain was the leather and leather products value chain. And this sector was selected because of its base for having a strong industrialization potential. And it was also foreseen that it could help in terms of the issue of diversifying exports beyond primary commodities. So these are the three, key value chains. And so most of the experiences that I'll be sharing will be centered along, these three value chains. Now, before I move on to the actual experiences in terms of approaches that Recamp took, I thought I would highlight this slide on the changing nature of agriculture competitiveness. And from the Recamp design, it was very, very early on noted that one of the key lessons is that the landscape for agriculture, is not predominantly fixed on focusing just on productivity. So one of the key lessons from Recamp was that Africa's agriculture challenge it was not only about increasing productivity, and it was noted that in today's approach, competitiveness is determined by the performance of the entire value chain, I think, as the area presenter also noted. So you will note from this slide that agriculture competitiveness now depends on multiple interconnected stages. So we are looking at production, we are looking at processing, certification, logistics, and market access. So just keep these in mind, because these are almost like the cornerstones in terms of unlocking some of the challenges that you find in most of the food systems, and as well as what the program experienced under those three value chains. So you will note that at each stage there are major bottlenecks that reduce competitiveness. When you look at the farm level, There are issues of low productivity. We have issues of climate shocks. We've had issues of limited access to quality inputs. And then in processing, you have many SMEs that continue to face limited production capacities. We have high operating costs and inconsistent quality. And then, of course, we have the issue of certification and standards compliance, which has also become increasingly important, especially when you talk about aspects of accessing markets in the European Union and beyond. You note that certification almost takes center stage in terms of how much it costs the SMEs to certify, in terms of compliance systems, in terms of traceability requirements, logistics also remain another challenge that includes, the issues of poor infrastructure. We have issues of delays at the borders and post-harvest losses and so on, and the list goes on and on. So this is why, RICAMP adopted a systemic approach. So you note that these different pertinent issues that I have mentioned, they therefore formed, the program itself in terms of approach and result areas. So in terms of approach, the RICAMP adopted an integrated and systems-based approach. And this was meant to focus on improving regional competitiveness and market access holistically. So the program recognized that the SMEs cannot compete effectively through isolated interventions. Because I think what you note from many, many projects is that there will be like piecemeal interventions. So an attempt, I think, under the different competitiveness programs, RICAMP included, which I highlighted, was to ensure that, we have an interconnected approach or a holistic approach that looked at the SME competitiveness upgrading, and then you look at the issues of sanitary and phytosanitary and standards compliance. And then there's also an important aspect that looks at the digital market systems and leveraging digital tools for market information. I think as we go towards the AFCFTA, this is one of the key issues, to know where the markets are, to get information in real time on price and so on, issues of traceability as well as just being efficient as a business. The other aspect which I'll touch on as we go on is the issue of technical support. I think also from the earlier presentation, you heard about the importance of finance. So under the RICAMP, we had a component that was looking at actual technical assistance. It was called the Technical Assistance Facility, where each of the member states, came up with a project worth 150,000 euros, and then they would use that money to support SMEs or to support an aspect within those three value chains and develop a small project, at a community level, at a country level, that then, would be supported under the EU technical assistance facility. So finally, the other approach that the project took was that there was also need to strengthen institutions within the COMESA. And I think this will also form one of the key lessons, I think, when you look at the continental level. So one of the key lessons is that institution strengthening, building regional systems and institutional capacity for, sustainable long-term impacts was key to the successes of the program. Okay, so I'll just quickly move on just to talk about the two result areas that RICAMP had and what they were focused on, and then we shall go into now the nuts and bolts of what really happened. So in terms of the result areas, the program had two focus result areas. So the first result areas, the area looked at enhancing competitiveness for the SMEs and firms. And that's all it focused on. So within that, it had four components. The first one looked at supporting the SMEs to improve export readiness and participate more effectively in regional international markets. And then the second one, it looked at enhancing business linkages. Again, just keep this one in mind. I think this is one of the critical issues that we need to also discuss on how we can enhance this, ensuring we have B2B linkages, and to what extent do we expose our SMEs in terms of participating in trade. The third component was on improving the SME capacities on sanitary and phytosanitary and standard compliance. This is one of those very, very important issues as far as increasing, if we are to improve on trade with the European Union. The issues of certification, the issues of traceability, the issues of food safety and quality assurance systems before we even engage, in exporting. Do we have SMEs that have quality assurance systems, and how do we bring them up to that level as they participate in this value chain? So this became, a primary focus under this result area. And then, of course, I've talked already about the technical assistance facility, where each member state was, given a certain amount, 150,000 euros, for them to look at the bottlenecks in terms of competitiveness. And they had some small projects I'll touch on, maybe one or two, just to showcase, some of the key results. So I think that's the first result area. And the last result area was also equally important. This one looked at improving the business environment. So you note that the first result area, we focused on issues to do with SMEs and firms and improving their competitiveness and giving them actual support. There was also an equivalent that looked at the policy level. Okay, so this one looked at strengthening regional public-private dialogue, and the program supported stronger collaborations between the governments and regional institutions, as well as the private sector. So this issue, you will note, in terms of improving our competitiveness in the value chains, is key, because what you note is that within ourselves, our countries don't necessarily talk to each other in terms of policy coordination. So you find the SPS issues in one member state are not aligned with the next one. And you also see the role of our Pan-African quality infrastructure, some of the institutes. You note that there's that gap where we now need, that strong coordination, so that for us to have this regional trade, we need to have policies that and standards that are harmonized. And then there was also an issue of investment climate discussions. For COMESA, we had the COMESA Common Investment Area, the CCIA, that was supported, just looking at the entire business environment. What sort of policies do we need to have across our member states? So that's what this result area was focused on. I think lastly, on the program setup, I'll also look at just how RICAMP was organized. And I think there are some key lessons here as well, as you will see. So I think for those of us that are familiar with COMESA, you note that COMESA has got, of course, the COMESA Secretariat, which is in Lusaka, Zambia. But beyond that, it also has other institutions such as the Africa Leather and Leather Products Institute, ALPI, which is in Ethiopia. There's the COMESA Business Council, and I know even East Africa has an equivalent. We have the Regional Investment Agency, which is in Egypt. There are also obviously the different divisions at the COMESA Secretariat. Then there is the COMESA Federation of Women in Business, and there is the Alliance for Commodity Trade for East and Southern Africa. So now, these are the institutions that were designed to implement the recamp. So what you notice that each of these institutions have got unique specializations, and it is that experience which they put into the program to ensure that the program succeeded. Now, this is at a micro rec level. So you note we have these institutions, but at the AU level, we have all our big institutions. We have the AUDA NEPAD, we have the Africa Food Safety Agency. So some of the lessons we can draw from, this approach would definitely apply to the higher level. And so I think with that background, I can now probably move on to my next slide, which is looking at improving quantity, quality, timeliness, traceability, and logistics. So in terms of this slide, let me just turn to this one, as this is also one of the most important lessons that we get from the recamp, that improving, quantity, quality, timeliness, traceability, and logistics is key. So in terms of lessons, what the recamp found is that these are now, the real determinants of competitiveness in terms of trading with the EU, and in terms of the having access to global food markets. For example, you note that it's no longer enough for an SME to simply produce tomatoes, avocados, or leather products or processed foods. The markets are now increasingly, demanding consistent volumes. There are issues of reliability, quality, reliability. There are issues of proper quality packaging, traceability, which I touched on, as well as timely delivery. And from our experience, we note that this is where many of our African SMEs have struggled in participating effectively in value chains within the region, as well as trading with our partners such as the EU. So under the recamp, we approached this challenge in 3 practical ways. So we first focused on strengthening the SME competitiveness, and I remember under the first result area that I noted. So this included ensuring that the SMEs that were participating in the program were trained on export readiness training, packaging and branding. And so these two, for example, if you recall from my institutional diagram, so the COMESA Business Council, as well as the COMESA Federation of Women in Business, particularly, took charge of this component. Okay, and then we also have there were also trainings in terms of enterprise upgrading for horticulture and agro-processing for SMEs. And we also worked on regional trade systems using, the Regional Investment Agency. So what is key, I think, to note with these variables is that most of the time, so sometimes the challenge might not even be the SME itself. And so for recamp, what we focused on was supporting the standards harmonization, SPS coordination. So with the SPS coordination, we looked at, for example, establishing mutual recognition frameworks for SPS. So we have one between Kenya and Uganda. We have one between Zambia and Malawi, where you recognize each other's standards. And this was a critical, lesson that was learned. and that it was also necessary to ensure that we have regional dialogues on non-tariff barriers, which are increasingly of late more than the tariff barriers. And then thirdly, we focused on the issues of logistics and market access. So the issues of delays at the borders within our region. We had a sister program, again funded by the EU, the Trade Facilitation Program, the TFP, that was focused on improving border infrastructure. And with that, there was the Zambia-Malawi, the Mchinji border post that was, upgraded into a one-stop border. So again, these are the issues that may look remote, but they'll definitely affect, the players in these value chains. There was also the issue of cold chain gaps in terms of agro-processing. That was looked at, and that also needs, a serious discussion in terms of how they affect inefficient trade facilitation systems. So for RICAM, the program advocated for improved trade facilitation and stronger institutional coordination beyond the SMEs, as I have said earlier. So I think in summary on this, I would say that for the EU and the global markets, there is need to look at issues of consistency supply, the reliability of the products, the delivery systems as well as the traceability issues. For RICAMP, issues of traceability, the program, for those that are in leather and leather products, the program had to go, a step further to ensure that code stampers were procured for the SMEs that are in leather and leather products, to make sure that they code, the leather, the hides, from the time it's on the animal, they slaughter. So, and the management of that, how do you handle it, the issues of quality. So there was a code that was given. So all the member states have got, as we speak, have got code stampers supported by Africa Leather and Leather Products as part of the RICAMP interventions to support, trade in leather and leather products. So those are some of the key, lessons that we need to focus on. Okay, so this slide shows one of the practical approaches, as I've mentioned, that was used to strengthen the market access and enterprise competitiveness. And so part of the practical ways, which it's not cheap, but I think it bears a lot of results, was the EU COMESA trade missions that were done. So through the RICAMP, we had SMEs from the COMESA member states that participated in trade and learning missions to countries such as the Netherlands and Germany. So remember, we got these from the three value chains. So most of the missions you note for some programs, it's all about just exposure, but this was different. This was about helping SMEs understand how competitive export systems actually operate in practice. So during these missions, the SMEs interacted directly with the buyers, the retailers. We organized with the EU to bring the actual players who certify, the certification bodies made presentations. We had logistics operators, that were present, and they talked about opportunities to partner, for example. We also had food safety institutions, and the participants also visited processing facilities, packaging operations, distribution systems, and export-oriented agribusiness enterprises, which were some of them which were already, trading with a few firms in Africa. Some of the things that they look at, and I think on this, I would like to say that the important lesson is that I think in future programming, we need to look at how we can have such, practical components embedded in our programs. So what you see, those are the actual pictures of actual representatives of SMEs from, the COMESA and meetings with actual policy makers. So we had a very, very fruitful interactions to such an extent that, we even had B2B business meetings that were facilitated through this approach. And this contributed immensely to, the participants in the value chains. So I cannot overemphasize, how important this aspect is, I think, as in future, as we discuss value chains. In terms of some of the key achievements, so the program had over 1,800 SMEs that were trained on readiness, branding, packaging, SME compliance, digital tools, that is through assistance from the ITC. And we also had a number of SMEs that were trained on the BizNet. The BizNet it's a digital platform that COMESA uses, for buyers and sellers interaction. And of course, I've mentioned the Africa Trade Observatory and the Trade Map digital tools. And again, we cannot overemphasize the importance of these digital tools, because as we go into the AFCFTA, these are aspects of trade and regional integration that we noted are important. And for the SMEs, we had 10 from the member states, as I indicated, that participated in the trade missions. At least during the life of the program, we had SMEs go to the Netherlands and Germany, where B2B partnerships and export linkages were actually facilitated. Now, you might be wondering on the issue of horticulture. We also had SMEs that were supported through good agriculture practices, the market intelligence support, and export readiness. Okay, so other notable, I think, results, some of these I've talked about in the market information systems and digital marketplaces. So this slide highlights some of the practical achievements that RICAMP achieved within the horticulture value chain. So a major focus was on ensuring that we had the SMEs onboarded onto the platform, because platforms in themselves, don't mean anything unless the people are using them and able to interact. So we had, I think I mentioned the 14 member states that are equipped with the traceability systems and are now able to export, the different leather products and hides, within the region and outside. And then lastly, and very important, I would also like to talk about the development of the online global markets program platform, and I'll briefly share some of the key outcomes from the GMAP, and it was just amazing. So
it's becoming more interesting, but time is also not a friend at this time. So if you can do it in 10 minutes, I think that we will appreciate it.
No problem. I'll wind up very quickly. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So in terms of strengthening food safety and sustainability compliance, we had the global markets program. I think I'll just quickly, show you some of the key areas that are probably of interest in terms of issues of the food systems. So we had actual training of enterprises. We had 238 enterprises that were onboarded onto the global markets program. And we also had 20 that were progress towards the Global Food Safety Initiative. So I think this is also important that we looked at the entire value chain. So as we were training these SMEs and onboarding them, we also had buying partners, that were supporting these SMEs on the program in terms of, on the food side. So these are some of the key chain stores and food retailers, that were actively on the COMESA program. On the next slide, just to show you some of the successes and the partnerships, and I would like to emphasize the different partnerships. So we did have a partnership and we took some SMEs to the School of Food Technology and Nutrition and Bioengineering at the University of Makerere. And our SMEs were trained on food handling. So the first picture on the top left, that's actual equipment that was bought for an incubator program under the Technical Assistance Facility for Seychelles. And that was on food processing, and they managed to get equipment. And the middle picture there, that's at the University of Makerere in the School of Food Technology and Nutrition. And the last picture, our SMEs were just being, taken on the around just to show them, some of the different practices that they were, exposed to. Okay, so and then again, this is another, value chain that was supported from Uganda on fresh fruits and vegetables, where we had over 95 stakeholders trained on SPS systems. And, the last part on the practical recamp examples, we had SMEs also trained in Zambia in leather and agro processing, 174 certified on eco certification, traceability systems, and regulatory compliance. So these are just some of the key achievements. And you see there's that picture on your bottom left. So that's also, the code stampers that were procured. And this is just an example of being practical to assist and finance, SMEs and showcase what is possible, once resources are available. I think one of the other key aspects was the SMEs, B2Bs that were done. So SMEs from Rwanda would go to Ghana and learn, so that those are the actual SMEs. We did the same for Zambia. And Rwanda also went to Mozambique. Okay, so those are just some of the practical elements, and I can't overemphasize, the importance of ensuring that even the SMEs speak to each other as we attempt to build their capacities. I think let me just quickly, this is, I think, my second last slide, Dr. Kwaku. So in terms of strategic lessons from the program, we learned that competitiveness requires a systems approach. And this is what we did under the recamp. I think this is something that is replicable in terms of at the African Union, we have our institutions. And so we could strategically focus each of our institutions to take on certain aspects, of value chains. And that worked very well with the support from the EU. We also, another key strategic lesson is that regional integration reduces market fragmentation. The issue of harmonized systems, mutual recognition systems for SPS issues to improve market efficiency, very important. And then there's the issue of standards and sustainability, ensuring that compliance is actually an opportunity and not an obstacle in trade. So it's something that we can build on using compliance to increase more trade. And of course, lastly, the digitalization. This is key. We need to ensure that as much as possible, as we participate in these value chains, we focus on aspects of digitalization and ensuring that we have as many SMEs as possible, participate in this. Perhaps just some key takeaways for PANAP. I think as a final reflection, the recamp experience does provide several practical lessons that strongly align with the broader objectives of PANAP and the AU-EU, FNSA partnership. So I think I would say that recamp demonstrated that strengthening regional agriculture value chains does contribute directly to food and nutrition security. And I think if we focus on improving the SME competitiveness and strengthening market systems in our value chains, I think this is, something that would go a long way in terms of creating jobs, strengthening food availability and market access. And it's also important to note that these, outcomes strongly align with the Malabo Declaration, the SDG 1 on ending poverty, SDG 2 on zero hunger. So I think this is something that we should be intentional about. I think in the interest of time, moderator, I will end here. I can, there are so many interesting things that came out, but I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ngwira. I hope I got it right this time around. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're so much grateful for sharing this with us. I think participants have a lot of questions and also contributions to make to the presentation that you've made. The key takeaway that you have highlighted are also very important and are well noted. And I think not just applicable to PANAP, but applicable to countries, applicable to other institutions that are, more into value chain and its analysis and the rest of it. So I would plead that you continue to stay with us whilst we take the third presentation. And then after that, we give participants the opportunity. I believe some of them have questions for you. Others who also want to seek some clarification on some of the slides. And so we'll give them the floor to do that once we are done with the third presentation. So without much ado, I would like to invite our third presenter, Mr. Baraka, to also come in and then present to us the aspects of value chain that his company is promoting and some lessons that we can learn from him. So, Mr. Baraka, if you can hear me, the floor is yours. You may share your screen and proceed.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you. So first of all, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you once again to the organizers for the opportunity to speak during this important conversation on strengthening Africa's agricultural value chains. My name is Baraka Jeremiah. I'm the founder and CEO of Kilimo Fresh Foods, and I'm currently based in Tanzania. So today I'll be sharing practical insights from our experience in building efficient fresh produce supply chains through lead buyer business engagements, digital innovation, as well as market coordination systems that connect smallholder farmers directly to the markets. I will also touch on how these systems are creating employment for young people while reducing food waste across the value chains. So Kilimo Fresh is an agricultural or agri-tech solution that is focusing on fresh produce aggregation, distribution, and market access. We leverage technology and logistics systems to connect farmers with consumers, informal retailers, hotels, restaurants, and other institution buyers. Our vision is to become like a preferred fresh produce marketplace in Tanzania while reducing food waste and improving farmers' incomes. But at the center of our mission is a simple idea that food can be brought to market with zero waste. So the company was founded by three entrepreneurs. Our founding team combines over 40 years experience across agricultural, finance, and technology, and as well as business operations in East and Western Africa. Myself and Justice went to the same university. We did the same course, bachelor degree in business administration in Mzumbe University. And Faith, I met Faith in Nigeria when I was doing participating in one of the entrepreneurship boot camps, and she was there as head of operations for Cellulant for over 4 years. And after sharing the reason why I'm there and having a conversation about what she was doing, we found out that we had we'd faced common challenges as smallholder farmers, but also we had similar idea on what solution we wanted to provide to smallholder farmers in Tanzania, and also across the whole value chain. And then because of that, then we came back to Tanzania and started Kilimo Fresh. However, before we started Kilimo Fresh, we were farmers for about 4 to 5 years, growing tomato, capsicums, and watermelons. And then we were selling to mid-domain and transporters in the rural part of Tanzania. So during our journey as smallholder farmers, we had a lot of issues. First of all, with limited access to storage. Also, we didn't know what produce were moving fast in the market because we were doing production first and then looking for the market later. And on top of that, we had no ways to finance for the logistic cost to take our produce to the market. So the only contacts we had were the middlemen who were really paying us very low. We really broke even, and after 4 or 5 years of farming, we decided to stop, and that's when we started Kilimo Fresh in the idea of helping smallholder farmers. And behind us is over 45 full-time and 17 part-time staff. Over 40% of our staff are women, and this goes across different part of the value chain, from transporters to the team that does procurement, finance, and sales in Dar es Salaam. And this demonstrates that agriculture today is not only about farming, but it's also about technology, logistics, data, as well as entrepreneurship. So going to the main problem that we are solving, one of the biggest challenges we face in Tanzania and across Africa is post-harvest losses. And it's something that we also faced as smallholder farmers. In Tanzania alone, over 40% of the food is wasted before reaching the market. This is not because farmers are failing to produce. It's because the systems responsible for storage, transportation, and aggregation and market linkages are very inefficient. For example, most farmers in Tanzania are struggling with access to modern storage facilities, poor transport and handling, as well as limited access to the market. And the challenge affects over 75% of the smallholder farmers, especially the 67% that live in rural areas. But also in the urban areas, we saw another problem. Over 90% of Tanzanians we purchase, not just Tanzania, but Africans we purchase fresh produce from the informal retailers. These are mom and pops or fresh fruits and vegetable kiosks in the streets. Most of these retailers rely on middlemen and inefficient wholesale markets to buy the daily need of fresh produce. Some of these produce have traveled over a very long distance to get to their shelves, and sometimes before they even sell them, they're already gone bad. So again, losing the produce, but also losing the money they used to purchase the produce. So therefore, creating more problems when it comes to food waste. And looking back at the retailers, in Tanzania, for example, in Dar es Salaam, we have over 35,000 to 40,000 retailers. Majority of them are youth and majority of them are women. And most of these are self-employed, try to make ends meet. Now, just because they don't have reliable source of fresh produce, they have to go to the market early in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning to buy the produce and bring it back to their shops. And some of these produce have stayed in the market for 3 to 4 days while waiting for buyers. So it's really discouraging for some of these retailers because they're trying to employ themselves, but also employ other people. But at the end of the day, they end up being exposed to the challenge of food waste. And the biggest part of this is that we see is the fragmentation that is happening between the smallholder farmers. There's no direct linkage between the smallholder farmers and the final consumers. And that is why we introduced Kilimo Fresh. We leverage technology and cold chain logistics to aggregate produce from smallholder farmers and distribute efficiently to informal retailers, B2B, but also into the households. So we combined multiple networks. We have multiple networks of collection centers in different parts of Tanzania where farmers can bring the produce there, and then we do some sort of cleaning, sorting, and packaging. And then the trucks will bring the produce to their packhouse facility in Dar es Salaam, and then we send this produce to our customers. But what we do on behalf of the smallholder farmers is we already have negotiated contracts with the buyers in terms of hotels, restaurants, caterers. For the informal retailers, we already create demand for them. Most of these give us orders 24 to 48 hours before. So therefore, by the time we go to the smallholder farmers, we already know exactly what to need, the quality and everything else. So first we have the demand. We have one side of the cycle, which is the demand, where customers tell us exactly what they need. And then we use that information to connect with the smallholder farmers and tell them, this is the demand we have. What can you provide? And when can you harvest and things like that. Our customers like B2B, hotels, airlines, franchises like KFC, they give us order monthly in advance. So we can communicate that information monthly in advance with the smallholder farmers to tell them, the next 4 weeks, this is what we want. Do you need any support in harvesting? Do you need any support in maybe packaging and everything else? And then we can provide farmers with this kind of support to make sure that they're able to sell almost everything they are harvesting, as compared to before, where they had to harvest and put them in the storage and wait for the customer to come. And our model is built around coordination and efficiency. And the key idea is that lead buyers can organize fragmented ecosystem and create predictable market systems for both the farmers and the buyers. This is an example of how we pack, salt pack, and how we clean salt pack our produce. We put them in the crates, put them in the trucks. We have a fleet of cold storage for the trucks that called chain logistics that kind of bring the produce to the Dar es Salaam and distribute to our customers. And over time, we have expanded into multiple value chains and services. We distribute fresh fruits and vegetables to hotels and restaurants. This is what we started with. And then later on, we expanded to potatoes, which is right now contributes to over 60% of our revenue. We currently distribute 60 to 70 tons of potatoes on a daily basis. And this mostly is distributed to the informal retailers. And we started potatoes because it's the one of the most consumed products on a daily basis. Most of us in the universities, we eat chips mayai. So chips mayai is chips cooked with eggs. It's the most popular street food in Tanzania, and the main ingredient is potatoes. So they really move a lot. And apart from potatoes, the next product that we are exporting is banana. Expanding to banana ripening and distributing through upcoming Ndizi Fresh initiative. Ndizi means banana in Swahili. So Ndizi Fresh will be a brand for the banana ripening project. So our banana ripening initiative is designed to address another major challenge in Africa food system, whereas up to 30% of bananas are wasted because farmers lack access to proper ripening infrastructure, and also because the initial cost is very expensive. So farmers cannot really afford this. And therefore, they use the traditional ways of ripening these bananas. Now, our investment approach includes collection centers, solar-powered ripening containers, but also electric delivery tuk-tuks because bananas are not very heavy as compared to potatoes. And the project combines the climate-smart agriculture, clean energy, logistic innovation, but also youth employment. So we expect to start this project by Q3 of 2026. And of course, as you know, digital tools are very important. Technology plays a major role in making fragmented ecosystem work. We use digital ordering systems for B2B customers and WhatsApp-based systems for informal retailers. So our informal retailers kind of go online on WhatsApp chatbot, can see the platform, see the prices, they can place orders. They can also make payment and then get delivery to their locations. And why WhatsApp? Because it's easy to start. As you know, these are called informal retailers for a reason. They are so informal. It takes time to formalize them. So we decided to use a very simple application, which is WhatsApp. And then later on, we can introduce an application for them to be able to place orders. And the importance of these tools, improve communication, streamline order management. We also use this for demand forecasting, traceability, but also operational efficiency. Importantly, these digital systems also help build trust across the value chain. And we are doing something what we call profiling, whereas we do record every transactions, every information that goes through these applications. And later on, we want to engage MFIs to be able to use the data to finance these informal retailers so they can be able to grow their shops, they can buy more from Kilimo Fresh, but also create more jobs by hiring more people as they expand the business to other locations. So I'll skip this. On the I was looking for another slide. Okay, it's not here. Anyways, I want to talk on the impact side. I'll just mention it. So far to date, we have impacted over 3,500 smallholder farmers, where 40% are women. We have also been able to distribute and serve over 3,000 informal retailers, where 38% of these are women. And currently, we're distributing to over 50 active customers, but as of last quarter, we have already onboarded additional 150 hotels and restaurants. These are what we categorize as B2B. And many of these participants are women and young entrepreneurs for the informal retailers. And this demonstrates how coordinated agricultural value chains can generate both economic and social impact. We're improving food systems while improving food distribution systems. So I have like a few of a take I wanted to share. First of all, financing the value chain gap. One important lesson that we have learned is that agricultural supply chains require specialized financing models. So businesses like ours, we need working capital, cold chain financing, logistics, expansion support, blended finance, but also farmer support financing. Traditional financing models often they do not fully understand the realities of perishable supply chains. And so because of this, there's a major opportunity for investors and development partners to support scalable businesses infrastructures across Africa. And also another point is like I call it the Africa strengthening agricultural value chains, more like lessons for Africa, where as we reflect on our journey, there are several important lessons for strengthening Africa's agricultural value chains. First, I'd say market access must come before production expansion. Second, digital systems improve efficiency and transparency. And then third, lead buyers can organize fragmented ecosystems. Young people are critical operators on modern agricultural value chains. But also finally, financing systems must fit the realities of perishables and food logistics. So I won't go into details of this because of interest of time. But I just want to say thank you so much for the time and attention. I appreciate the opportunity to share the Kilimo Fresh experience from Tanzania. And I look forward to the discussion and learning from other participants as we continue building stronger and more inclusive food systems across Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Baraka, for this presentation. It's been very interesting, and I believe that there are questions that participants have for you. So thank you so much. So we will get into the Q&A. I see that the chat has been very busy. There has been a lot of interactions going on in the chat, and Dr. Rosemirta, thank you so much for providing some of the responses to the participants. So participants, the floor is open. If you want to ask a question, you raise your hand. I will call you, and then you can come in to ask your question. And kindly make it brief. We are just about some few minutes to end this, so kindly make it brief so that the presenters can respond to your question. I have seen the hand of Francis. Is there any other person? Before I call Francis, maybe I'll since I'm the one that is moderating, I'll take the first shots. That is my privilege. So pardon me. So mine is to the second presenter, Mr. Ngwira. Yes. So mine is on the selection of the value chains. You know, this was an EU funded funded project. You said you did baseline to select the value chains. I want to understand, or if you can share with us your experience on how you were able to avoid, the influence of the funder in selecting the value chains, because usually it's something that, should be of interest to them. So value chains that are of interest to them, that is what they promote. So in this case, how did you ensure that that influence, wasn't the case but then you selected value chains based on the needs of the COMESA member countries. So maybe you may note it, and then I'll call on Francis to come in so that we take a couple of questions before we come in with the responses to save time. So Francis, please, you may proceed.
Oh, thank you very much, moderator. And also thank you very much to all our colleagues who've made the quite insightful presentation. Now, my question is drawn to the last presentation by Mr. Baraka. It's quite an interesting study, and we've also done similar studies for Kenya. So my question is for the sustainable value chains. Is in regard to the loss and wastage. So my question is whether you are leveraging on AI, artificial intelligence, to support your coordination of value chains in the reduction of food loss and food waste. So then, secondly, what is the role of government, especially in supporting the infrastructure support? Now that you are dealing with quite sensitive commodities, some are fresh produce like the tomatoes that we saw that you are trying to reduce the wastages. So then what is the role of government in supporting the reduction of food loss and food waste, especially when dealing with the fresh produce? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis. Is there any other? Okay, I don't see any hand now, so maybe, but there are still things in the chat. Okay, with raising a hand, I wish to request that we refocus and take advantage of the EU. Okay, there's something in the chat. I'll read it later. So, okay, yes, Dr. Kwe, please proceed.
Okay, so thank you so much. I just want to express my appreciation for this wonderful webinar series. All the three presentations have been very insightful. And I think we don't have a lot of time on our hands, but little was shared about challenges and lessons learned. And I think that next time when we have the opportunity, it shouldn't be all the sweet things, but then the negative can be shared as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I believe so. In that case, we are asking the presenters to maybe share some challenges with us. It might not be everything, but just some challenges that they face and how they dealt with those challenges. Well, okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Kwe, for that. So I don't see any hand. So okay, now let me give the floor. Dr. Rosemirta, I've seen your hand. Is there a contribution or a question? Hello, Dr. Rosemirta, you are muted. Okay, so let me give the floor to the presenters to respond to those questions. So let me start with Mr. Ngwira to proceed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kwaku. Very, very, very important question on the issue of selection of value chains. How do you stop, the donors from influencing? So I think I'll briefly just go back to what, Dr. Rosemirta spoke about, and this is the issue of ensuring that you have done your baseline studies. So in the case of COMESA, there was a baseline study that was done in 2014. So, it was easy then to just use that as a basis because COMESA is governed by different strategic plans such as the midterm strategic plan, the MTSP, and also member states. So with COMESA, I think it was relatively, straightforward because the member states themselves had prioritized which value chains. However, I should mention that we have seen a shift, from that approach, particularly under the EU Gateway. The successor programs from RECAMP, this Africa Trade Competitiveness and Market Access program, the ATC map, has taken a different approach. I think we have seen a lot more influence, from the donor side to also take an interest on which value chains speak to them and their member states as well. So I think what we now see in the current setup is a situation where there is sort of negotiation between, the AU as well as the donor and the REX, just to see, which value chains. So with the new programs, you note that the East African bloc will have specific value chains that the EU Gateway is supporting. West Africa, same thing. Southern Africa, Central Africa, same thing. So you note that we won't have the same value chains being supported across. And yeah, so anyway, that's the short answer, but I just wanted you to take note of the shift that has recently happened compared to the past.
Okay, thank you very much. And are you able to share just about one or two challenges? But before you go on to the challenges, participants, we have posted the link to the evaluation. We don't want to, spend so much time on that. So there's a link that has been shared in the chat. Kindly click it. When you click it, it will take you to the evaluation form, and we ask or we plead with you to fill the form for us. I mean, as I said, it helps us to learn and it helps us to be better in our subsequent webinar sessions. There's also a QR code that has been posted. So either you pick the link or you take the code, any of them will work. So kindly do that for us. So whilst we do that, please proceed. Is there any one or two challenges and how you dealt with them?
Yeah. Sorry, this is just in relation to the program, or?
Yes, to the program.
So I think in relation to the program, I can say, the central challenge was and still is the limited SME capacity in terms of compliance with the quality standards and the issue of traceability and export readiness. So this, I think, up to now remains one of the key challenges. The second one, I would say, the policy harmonization aspect. So we have a lot of member states that have policies that do not support trade. Like they just don't speak to each other because their requirements are not uniform. So I think this remains one of the key challenges for Africa trade.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Baraka, there was a question on government's involvement in your activities. How is it like? Hello, Mr. Baraka. Okay, I think maybe he's not hearing us because of his location, so we may excuse him because he indicated that he's not even feeling too well. So, but I think generally, these things are not located at to one place. I mean, the situation is really same across countries in terms of government involvement in some of these things. But let me allow Dr. Rosemirta to come in. Probably there's something that we need to know. Dr. Rosemirta.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kwaku.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've sent a message. I've sent a message to Mr. Baraka to respond. But
okay.
Meanwhile, there were two questions that were addressed to me in the chat, and I responded. One, I didn't respond. I could use this opportunity. It was about the methodology of value chains, and how it can be applied to dimensions like climate change, issues of power balances, and then also issues of ensuring fairness and I think I've forgotten the other dimension. But all in all, I responded, and I would like, for the benefit of the participants, that the value chain approach, the way we are reconfiguring it right now, as I did say, to address R&D issues and also address global issues right now through this webinar, is that the stepwise approach gives you a wider scope in which you can integrate an issue. So if the issue is power balance, then you can look at the first step. Sorry, what is the critical commodity? What is the critical investment area? Is power balance an issue for strengthening the value chain? So if it comes out as an issue during the value chain mapping, then you already identify the control points along the value chain. If it is in logistics, if it's in production, if it is, these are power issues in markets, then it is addressed at that node of the value chain, and the power issue is articulated through the rigorous mapping that involves the stakeholders whose power dimensions are very important for upgrading, strengthening, or creating linkages along the value chain. Thank you very much.
Right.
I hope I've responded. Then there was
Yeah,
also another
thank you.
issue that we need to talk about now, agroecology. Prof. Say Chawa. Yeah, that, so we already have that. Actually, with Dr. Kwaku, we are working on agroecology on the Africa landscape with support from FARA. So they are also bringing out unique elements that are clearly entrenched in value chains, like business models for market access, like you already had the COMESA talk about stamps. So in agroecology, we are already thinking about market access dimensions like food stamps, like where we used to have fair trade as a stamp for market access. We are looking at traceability issues. Is there an element of fair trade that is needed? So agroecology, maybe we shall have another webinar. We are already packaging all these competitive market access requirements along the commodity value chains that make agroecological products become a standout kind of product portfolio. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemirta, for that. So I don't see any other hands, so I'll go again on the refer to the agenda, and at this moment invite Dr. Rosemirta to, in 5 minutes, give us the takeaways and then the closing remarks. But just to remind participants again that the link is active, so let's all get in there and then fill in the questionnaire to help us do better in our next webinar. So Dr. Rosemirta, in a few minutes, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much. Thank you, colleagues, for gracing this occasion. Our 2 hours, I think, are well spent. I have also posted a link that has access to the Mentimeter. Sorry for overburdening you, but we are trying to utilize this time very well. We have given an opportunity for people to give reflections. We can also use this time if there's somebody who has a key takeaway or a key remark, you can raise your hand. We can take maybe 2 or 3, and then the others you can we can post your feedback under the link that I've put, which has HTTP YouTube. It's a Mentimeter, so you can also go in and then we shall collect the views. Before I can use this, if there are people who have some takeaways that you think we can put on record, but what I have captured as takeaways, if I give my closing remark, is that a value chain approach is a timely methodology for addressing trade facilitation, extension, and advisory services in the Africa landscape, and also looking at the case of our youth in Tanzania. I think if we need to continue to support SME business models that provide solutions to Africa's competitiveness when it comes to agricultural value chain products. Right now, as you have all heard, we are talking about the Global Gateway Program for Europe. This is a landmark program that is shaping the investment of Europe into Africa's agriculture development. So we need these conversations to identify critical issues that need to be invested in, to also prepare a business case for Africa's agricultural products. As you have rightly heard, Africa is very rich, but we need to put a business case for people to invest properly in Africa's agricultural value chains. So with that, I take that as a closing remark on my side. And if there is anybody who has something pertinent, because this is your forum, it's not our forum, me and Dr. Kwaku, we believe in getting your feedback. So if there's anything that you feel should go on record, please raise your hand. We can give you a few seconds so that it goes on record, so that we can also see it from your eyes. Fill in the Mentimeter so that we capture your thinking, your investment areas towards what we are trying to do. Dr. Kwaku,
Okay.
do I
There's a
continue
hand.
for?
No, there's
Okay,
a
I've
hand
seen it. So
from
I need your
Dr.
permission that can I call the person, or I hand over back to you?
Yes, please proceed. Yeah, Dr. Slia.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I am going to be direct. I know that we're running out of time. I think the issue raised in the presentation by Baraka is cardinal on very specific financing in terms of value chain development for businesses in Africa, such as his. And I think that's a very important
he's not
point.
trying to look 25 again. He's doing chair type.
Can I continue? May I continue?
Yes. Dr. Slia, yes,
Okay.
please proceed.
Yes, so I was just saying that I think we must not lose sight of the point raised by Baraka on the issue of a very specific financing model for businesses such as his in terms of aggregation and value chain development, logistics, market access, and so on. I think that is the point that is sometimes lost, that yes, business plans will be prepared and so on, but investors have to be very clear about the kind of investment models that are needed specifically for value chain development in Africa. I thought that point should not be lost. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Slia, for this great point that you have raised. I think it's something that is worth noting, and so that has been noted, and then we'll take it forward in our future discussions. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Yes, is there any other, Dr. Rosemirta? I don't see any hand. So as a moderator, I would want to now hand over to you to close us and then thank all the participants on our behalf. So Dr. Rosemirta, final words from you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kwaku. Thanks a lot, colleagues, for that wonderful participation. First of all, I would like to congratulate you. We had 102 at the peak participants, and we don't take that for granted because you have invested in. And 4, thank you. I was busy on the chat. We don't take that for granted because this is your forum. For us, our role, and Dr. Kwaku, is to think about how Africa can become a competitive continent when it comes to global businesses. And our value proposition is in agriculture, and of course also rare earth minerals, which we are later involving into the agricultural value chains. So once we have all these discussions and prepare the Africa landscape to be a competitive landscape when it comes to business, you see what is happening in Asia, in Latin America. We are having all these discussions, but we need to articulate issues that make us stand out. And that's why we are using the value chain approach, so that we leave no one behind, right from production to consumption and disposal of the commodities after use. So we thank you so much, and we are very grateful and bring this event to a conclusion. I would also like to use this opportunity to pass on the regards from our executive director, Dr. Lilian Lihasi, who has been facilitating this process of EU destination support to Africa continent. And with that, we thank you so much. We don't take that for granted. Yeah, thank you so much. So I've also been informed that the Mentimeter that I've posted has issues. I'm going to revise that and submit a better one. I think there was an error. So with that, I take this opportunity, Dr. Kwaku, to close the event, and also thank you for your moderation, and thanks to the PANAP team. There's a lot of work that has been done to get this presentation here. We had to vet, we had to think of what is needed for Africa, and I think we did not disappoint you having been with us for 2 hours. So with that, I consider the event closed, and the right link will be shared shortly, so you can stay online and feed in your submissions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Rosemirta. So on that note, we call the event closed. And thanks to the IT team for facilitating this, the interpreters, all of you, we are grateful for your support. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again at another webinar session. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you to the presenters as well. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.